and just say welcome to everybody. Welcome to the February 27th, 2024 edition of Beyond Words with Lucas McCarty and John Halloran. And the title for tonight's webinar is Finite Words, Infinite Possibilities. We do have the chat enabled, and you're welcome to use the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it, but if you have a question that you want to specifically ask John or Lucas, I suggest you use the question and answer feature, and I'll moderate that and interject those questions as I can. If you have any questions behind the scenes, my name is Stephanie, and I'll be here. After tonight, you will receive an email with
we don't, Lucas, that isn't you, is it, buddy?
After tonight, you'll receive an email with a link to the recording. It takes me just a little bit of time to get it posted up on YouTube, but I'll do that. And you'll also receive a link for your certificate of attendance tonight. I do encourage you to go and follow our YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to it. And then when the video is posted, you'll get a little notification. So with that, I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to make Mr. John our host.
Well, I really am grateful for the opportunity to get to present with Lucas tonight. Lucas and I go way back, and Lucas is a phenomenal communicator with his device, and he has so much to teach. And I don't know if anyone who's taught me more as a speech pathologist than Lucas has. And one of the things that Lucas does is he uses all of his different forms of communication. You use facial expressions better than anybody I know. He uses vocalizations. He uses his hands and gets excited in gestures. He uses his device. You use intonation, and you use volume. You use all those things. And I thought we would start out by doing one of the things. I love telling stories because when I start to tell them, it fires you up about certain things when we remember them. Well, the story I always loved telling was when we went to Washington, D.C. together. And anyway, we were in Washington, D.C., and I was showing you the monuments. We were driving in the car showing you the monuments, and you didn't care one bit about those monuments. I kept saying, there's Washington Monument. You didn't care. And then you started preaching to me about drinking beer and started telling me that I was going to go to hell and it was hot in hell. Yes. What were some of the things you were telling me in the car when I was driving? Yeah.
It is hot and with to make it hotter. No water and no air condition and you are there for life. It is hot with real fire to make it hotter, no water and no air condition, and you are there for life.
Yes, and you were letting me know what it was going to be like if I didn't straighten out. And then I came up with a good idea. I said, let's go to the National Cathedral. Do you remember that? And so we drove all the way across town to the National Cathedral. We got there and it was closed. and we were on the outside looking in, kind of looking at the windows and things, and all of a sudden a guy opened the door and he said, "You three come in with me." And it was your mom and I, and he said, "Come in, come in." He had no idea. The security guard let us into the cathedral. They were practicing for the inauguration for the next president. It was Obama. And I never forget, we got to go in there and listen to the National Orchestra playing or practicing, and you got to get on your knees and sing with them. It was the most amazing moment. So Lucas, you live a charmed life of stuff like that happening every time. Every time I've been with you, something crazy happens. I'm sure something crazy will happen tonight. But thank you for sharing your story. I'm going to go to my. I was very, when I decided I would share a PowerPoint with Lucas, I had to approve every. Lucas and I go way back. And I had to make sure that the slide I was showing was one that he approved of, because you and I have gone back. I know you really well. So let me make sure I'm seeing. All right. So here we are. Are you guys seeing my notes? Or are you guys seeing Lucas? Are you guys seeing Lucas now alone, or you see my notes too? I think you're just seeing Lucas. If I think that's right. So
Yeah.
there's Lucas with his. And Lucas, do you use the activity row ever, or do you just use the bottom symbols? Yeah, he
Hey,
doesn't.
excuse me, John.
Yes.
We can see the presenter view.
Yeah, I don't like that. So
I know.
I had it down. So you got it. So anyway, there's what I wanted you to see was beautiful, Lucas. So Lucas, you don't use that activity row at all, do you? You just use the bottom half. So in a normal Pathfinder, when somebody hit the rainbow, they would see a color red show up. So it would embellish to the color red. That's not what you do. Show them how you say red. When Lucas wants to say the color red, he hits the rainbow. He goes to the stop sign, and then he goes to a paintbrush.
Red.
And then he has red, red, or reddest. So I just want people to know that he's a very purist in where he learned. And I'm very proud, Lucas, that you're still on a Pathfinder. How many years have you been using this same vocabulary? Do you know? I'm not exactly sure either. It started on the, actually, started on the Delta Talker. How many years did it take you to start? Your mom wrote a diary, and how many years did it take you before you started using your device?
When I get got on Unity 128.
That's correct. That was about 8.
I learned very fast. When I got on Unity 128, I learned very fast.
That was about 8 years into your journey. Is that correct? Is that about right? The first 8 years you had systems, and even though they were systems people thought were appropriate, and you were the same kid, you didn't master those systems, and you were frustrated and having trouble with them. Then you got Unity 128, and things took off, and you started that's your mom's diary, which I like to reference. She's listening. So here's all the things that Lucas, you taught us in the LAMP program from way back when I met you 30 years ago. The first thing you taught us is how important a social connection is. And we're going to talk about how you got that social connection. And then you taught us that gestures are easier or come first, that you can learn where buttons are as a gesture. Like this, it's really a game of memory. It's this hole plus this hole. Like when I told you yesterday when we were practicing, I said, where's the word pizza? And you knew how to say pizza, but you didn't. Go ahead and say it if you want to. Well, he hits an apple, then he hits an ambulance, then he hits a watch.
Pizza.
And you didn't know that symbol sequence, why it was there. You just learned that hole plus that hole plus that hole equals that. And you learned it because those locations didn't change. So what I want people to learn is that gestures come before the understanding of symbol meanings and before you can categorize. So anyway, the other thing you really demonstrated with us is how important it was to have more locations because it means less sequencing. And the real thing you're here tonight to show people is how you can take a finite number of words to make an infinite amount of possibilities. I've been talking to you for the last 30 years, and you've debated with me on religion, you've debated with me on politics, on women, on all sorts of topics that we have on a regular basis. And all those conversations we've had, you've done it with a very finite number of words. And I don't even think I'm going to try to point out some of the tricks you do on here to show people how you own your own business, correct? And it's a cleaning business. So, but when I first heard you say I own my own business, tell them how you say own your own business.
I on my on business. I on my own business.
He says on instead of own. He tricks you the whole time. So will half the words that Lucas says to you tonight, or not half, but a third or so, a lot of times he plays tricks with words and you'll hear it perfect. You'll hear own, it's close enough. He'll combine those. So that's A there. Words are sounds and they're multi-meaning, but you combine them together with new sounds. There's a new church in Ohio that you've been watching and you want to go to that church in Ohio. And the first time and we're going to try to get people to we're going to try to get a bunch of money together, get you to go to that church in Ohio, that mega church. Now, the first time you told me that about that church in Ohio, how did you say Ohio? It wasn't, you came up with a way of saying it.
Oh. Hi. Ohio.
Ohio, pretty effective. I remember when you wanted to go to ATIA one year, you told me, John, when are you going to take me to the place the kids like to go where the mouse is? And that was your way of saying Orlando. It was so gifted. And then you wanted me to take you to California recently, and you told me the big state out west, which was, these are all genius ways of using a finite number of words to make an infinite amount of possibilities. So you taught us that trick. You taught us that predictive grammar is not necessarily a positive attribute on a device because it doesn't necessarily allow you to combine words in novel order. And then you taught me that sometimes being telegraphic is more effective than being syntactically correct. So you want to be able to speak the way you think. I see you're about to add something to it, so I'll be quiet. No, you were just getting ready. All right. And then the other thing so we're going to cover all this. This is just kind of an overview. You taught me that literacy is, everybody wants literacy, and you've been developing literacy. In your 20s, you started adding endings to words and spelling some words. But it can't be, people cannot think of literacy as if you don't have literacy, you can't communicate everything you want to say. And there's an irony in this is that many people who have literacy, and Lance McLemore wrote a blog on this, we'll talk about later, and Catlina, many people who have really fast hand control and have the ability to spell actually didn't use their devices very well or very often because it was too not efficient enough. While you had a smaller number of words and been using your machine fluidly even without literacy, which is what I want to give hope to those parents and people out there that may not have literacy but still need to be seen as someone who can become completely generative. And then I want people to understand you taught us that the language explosion comes when you give individuals core words and the fringe words that are important to them. And then the last thing you taught me with your mother's help was to trust the optimism of a dedicated parent over the pessimism of an educated person. And so for those things you taught us, Lucas. I'm now going to try to cover it in a long presentation, not too long. So the deal was, if you stayed awake, I had to pay you how much money again do I have to pay you if you stay awake during the training?
Oh,
Do you remember how much you negotiated?
200. 200.
Yeah, you and I have negotiated money for years. We negotiate money and how much you're going to get paid and stuff. So it's $200 if you don't fall asleep while I bore the crowd. And somebody told you to put tape on your eyes so I don't catch you sleeping. But and then we're going to vote at the end whether you should, what's the vote for at the end again? Do you remember what we're going to let the people vote for?
To see if I should get 300. To see if I should get 300.
So at the end, you guys are, everybody here is going to get to vote whether you should get 200 or 300. And I'm hoping for the 200 vote, Lucas. I really hope that. All right, this is when I first met you, Lucas, and you tried like crazy, and you were on a theme-based board with too big of buttons and not enough words on it. And so it would theme in, and there was no motor planning, and there was a lot of phrases in there, and you struggled and went to evaluators, and your mom would, a dedicated parent, drove you around. And then I met you in Memphis schools, and your finger would move this way and this way. And we recommended a Delta, or excuse me, a touch talker with 128 locations. And this time, but to help you, we had to put a popsicle stick on your finger. Do you remember the popsicle stick on your finger at all? Or did you block it out? Well, your finger. So anyway, no, you don't remember. Well, we did. We had to put a popsicle stick on your finger to try to get it.
Yeah.
But then you kept trying and trying, and it was struggling, and you were the same little boy. And then you did get that Delta talker with Unity 128 on it, and you had MinSpeak on it, a true MinSpeak based system. And what happened? Who do you give credit for helping you learn that MinSpeak based system?
Mama and my 2 aides. Mama and my 2 aides.
And it really is the truth. And in this 30 some years I've been doing this, the aides are the most important people, and so are the moms and dads and families and siblings. But those aides, those techs, those person that sits next to you in class that helps you out, they're always the trick. And when you look at the two that you're sitting with there, I can see the love they have for you, and you can see the love they have for you, back and forth. You two, you guys have made a strong social connection. What are the things they like to talk to you about? Do you remember what you would talk to your teachers about?
My believes who is in office. My believes who is in office.
So they would talk about religion, your beliefs in religion and God, and that you would talk about who is in politically. You were very worried about politics. And didn't you also have a real love for cleaning supplies, which led to your a true love? Do you remember when Memphis we went to the cleaning supply stores? We drove around and had trying to find them, and they weren't as big as you wanted them. Do you remember we were at a conference and we Hey, what did you tell me? What's a cleaning supply store like to you?
A general supply is like a candy store. A generous supply is like a candy store.
For you, it is. You get excited about the soaps and the detergents, the mop heads. You go crazy. The right shampooer will put you right over the top. So, but should I tell them the story about your truck? You saved up your own money to buy a truck, and we would talk for days after day. We would talk about tell me about what kind of truck it was again that you wanted to buy. You bought it, but oh,
I had a Dodge Dakota. I have a Dodge Dakota.
Well, when you were wanting to buy one and we were planning on going to look for it together, it had to be a certain color. It had to have a V6 engine. It had to have so I would get on Facebook Marketplace and search for it. Then I would send them to you. None of them were good enough for you. And because you wanted had to have under 60,000 miles, my memory it is. And finally, one day you told me you were done with me. You said I had no, what did you tell me again? How did you word it again? You said I had no control. How did you tell me that again?
When we go, you had no say. So I am the BOSS boss of this vacation. When we go, you had no say, so I am the boss of this vacation.
That's what you told me. It was your money. You're the boss. I do what you're told. I do what I'm told. That's the first word you've spelled is the word boss. And I'm going to get to that spelling didn't start until you were in your mid-20s, and it still doesn't happen very often. Although you do add endings on words, which started around 21 to 22 years of age. We'll get to that later. But anyway, Lucas, those teachers, I hope that parent will share this video with the aides in the classrooms, either Google aide tech, whoever sits next and helps your kid, because I want them to know that besides the mother and the father and the family, they're the most important person in a person's life. They're the reason you ended up being so successful as you did, Lucas. But you had to have the right tool to do it, given you the right tool, and then people who cared about you and wanted to talk about the things you wanted to talk about, your beliefs and politics, and then cleaning supplies. Those are the things that are important to you. Yeah. And then I know this was a very special teacher to you, and I was fortunate enough to meet her one day. So you had very good teachers and good support. Is there anything advice you can give teachers and people about working with someone who's learning a device? Do you have any advice for them?
Keep working with the child and they are going to get it. Keep working with the child and they are going to get it.
Lucas, it kills me every day on some social media group. I read somebody say, we've been trying for 9 months and it's not going as well. Or they'll say, we've been trying for a year and he's only got 25 words. And I keep thinking to myself, yeah, it takes a year to learn the first 25, then you get the snowball going. But if you're going to keep starting and stopping every few years because you're looking the next shiny ball or object comes up, you're going to be in real trouble. And so I'm sure it would have been easy for people to think that maybe you should have quit when you didn't. So Lucas, one of the things that you do that's quite amazing is you're a savant with I shouldn't call it a CB, like it's a ham radio or whatever, because you talk to people, you're quite sophisticated in your radio skills. Uh, who do you talk to? Truckers? Who do you talk to?
I used to talk to the truck drivers, but they was so mean.
Nobody.
I left 19 and now I have what is called a club of friends. I have met in person and we talk on 6. I used to talk to the truck drivers, but they was so mean I left 19 and now I have what is called a club of friends. I have met in person and we talk on 6.
There you go. All right, truck drivers. Nobody ever taught truck drivers. They're vulgar. They're nasty usually. So I'm glad you got off the truck drivers. And then I want to. This next part's going to get me potentially emotional. So anyway, the book came out called Year of Our Faith, Hope, and Harmony in the Mississippi Delta. And I know you told me you're done with the book, so we're not going to talk about it, but we had permission to do just a little. So anyway, if you haven't read Lucas's book, if you post on Facebook, I bought a lot of them, Lucas. I even have the pre-edition nobody else has and stuff. So I have some funny versions. But anyway, the foreword's done by Morgan Freeman and John Grisham. And this is about Lucas. This is Lucas's life in the Delta down there, singing in the choir and stuff. Anyway, I love the promo for the video for the book so much because I love the part where your mom's talking. So I'm going to play this. It's a 6-minute long video. Trust me, it's worth it. And it's really your mom. It's really your mom in this video. I love listening to her. She deserves so much credit, and so do all the other mothers in our Facebook group in our family of Lamp families. So this is sort of this is about your book. I know we should hopefully it'll play. If it doesn't, we'll send them the link. And I know there's a way to get rid of the ad, but I got to wait 6 seconds to do it. Somebody let me know if it does play and you can hear it.
Get tips and tricks on weight loss and healthy living from the weight loss experts at Arkansas Heart Hospital.
It's going awfully slow.
Jelly Roll, the Beautifully Broken Tour.
Trying to get it full screen.
Yeah.
It's not going full screen. Stephanie?
I like to sing because I
Yeah.
feel like that
Sorry, Lucas.
is my calling. I like to sing because I feel like that is my calling.
It's my great pleasure and privilege to introduce the Trinity House of Prayer Choir.
I'm Elizabeth Lear McCarty, mother of Lucas McCarty. Lucas, I have a son. When we go out, people stare at him. Some look the other way, but some come right up to him to give him a hug. He came into the world not pink and rosy, but gray and dead. Before the nurses and doctors could bring him back to life, his brain was injured. It was part of the brain that controls all his muscles. Muscles that help you swallow and talk. Muscles that help you move and walk. He can't swallow, so he drools. He can't move his tongue, so he can't talk. He can't balance, so he can't walk. But I don't want you to think he can't do much, because he can. He smiles a lot. He talks with the talker. He walks on his knees. He has friends all over. Truckers who talk to him on CB radio when they're passing through. Church friends, school friends, camp friends, restaurant friends, and I hope you will be his friend too.
If I had full screen, I'd play the link, but I want you to watch the whole thing by yourself. But that Elizabeth's part there is always my favorite. Now, you cannot believe how many times Lucas and I practice this, and we have full screen every time, and then we get here tonight, and it's not working like we want it to. So let's see how I get back to the PowerPoint now without losing everything. All right, we did it. It's a miracle, Lucas. Technology and miracle. Between the two of us, we made it work. But when we were practicing, it would go full screen, and everything was working so good. It must be that much power being taken by that many people on it. Must change it. Anyway, I did make the book, and so did Bach Shelton. This is a page out of the book. And the reason I pushed so hard for this book, Lucas, is because I'm so convinced it's going to be a movie, and I'm going to get a part in the movie or get to be played by somebody, and I want royalties. So one of these days we're going to pay it. You know, we got John Grisham and Morgan Freeman behind us, Lucas. We got to believe someday. My son he's marrying a girl we just cherish, and she's got connections to the director of The Office, some of the series. So anyway, I'm going to start working that angle to get this to be a book, or to get your book to be a movie. So read the book. Lucas and I need to get rich someday. Okay, why is it so important that you surround your kids with individuals who make that strong social connection with them? It's all about mirror neuron activity, and it ends up being the individuals with and without autism turn off mirror neuron performance based on the social connection they have to the person that they're watching or communicating with or around. So if you're modeling on a device and you don't have a social connection established, then the child doesn't have the mirror neuron activity where they're practicing the device by watching you, and therefore they don't benefit from it. And not to be snarky or mean at all, but I watch lots of videos and I get to see lots of therapy sessions. And I see therapists who are talking about stuff that the kid's not engaged in, and I see them going faster than the child can process the speed of their finger, and I see them talking at 2 or 3 levels above the individual. So if you're hitting the sequences too fast and the child only sees part of the sequence, then that sort of causes them confusion because they think the last button they saw is where the word came from. So when people say, you know, model, and use aided language simulation and all that stuff, that's really important, and you want to do it. But it's not just as easy as saying do it. There's a lot more involved in just doing it in front of the child. And the most important thing you do is make sure you're talking about and engaging them in activities things that they care about. I learned a long time ago, Lucas, that if I was to try to talk to you about the Dallas Cowboys or something, you would just shut me off. You had this way of saying, I don't talk about that stuff, or you really will shut me down quick if I talk about some subject you don't want to talk about. And through the years, I've also worked very hard on, as because we talk a lot, I've worked on your teaching you a sense of humor. You all right, buddy? Early on,
Yeah.
I'll keep going. Early on, when I would pick on you, you didn't understand the subtle humor, and you'd tell me, John, I don't play those games and stuff like that. That was just me trying to teach you humor, and you've mastered it. Now, when I try to mess with you, you dish it out just as good as you take it. Yeah, you can dish it out and take it. So Lucas, when it comes to LAMP, because you were such a founding person who put such an impression on me and others, the first thing we learned from you is that you had to make sure that for you to be at a readiness to learn, we had to be talking about topics and subjects that you cared about. Then we learned from observing you and watching you that those motor plans, those consistent motor plans that had those sounds attached to it, would become meaningful to you, that you didn't have to understand the metaphors, analogies, and associations, just the movement itself. We learned to make those motor plans more unique, to make motor plans farther apart. And I'm proud again that you're still on your Pathfinder, and someday we save that to a jump drive. And now I've been trying to get you to go to an accent. Every few years I try to get you to change, but we leave your vocabulary exactly the same, but it's still hard for you to change devices. You're pretty attached to that Pathfinder. But someday you do recognize we're going to have to move to an accent 1000. Everything will be the same, but you'll be a little different touch. Hopefully, maybe the buttons will be bigger. All right, so you taught us that a consistent motor plan can be taught from the expressive mode first, that you could mishit and find words, and that auditory signal attached, then you would see see something happen, that attached meaning, and then you release the neurotransmitter, make learning take place. Lucas, that was you. That's how you taught us the LAMP approach. So anyway, I've already covered the mirror neurons. I did start to talk about effective modeling. There is no reason to think you're benefiting a child very much if there's not if the activity they're not engaged in, they're not wanting to participate, it's not something they have a joy in, then you're not going to, it's still worth modeling, but you're not going to have the benefit you're after until you make that social connection and follow their lead and be communicating what they want to be talking about. This one's an important one. The way Lucas's device talks has to match the language community he lives in. So I don't say carrier phrases when I talk to Lucas, and Lucas doesn't use carrier phrases on his device. So we have to be able to, so that they have to speak the same and code the same way. You have to throw more words at people, at the kids and the adults, than people think's comfortable. If someone says, I like the device, it's not going to work. It needs to look terrible, because when you give people the words that occur often in speech, they don't look good. And then the words that take longer to learn have to still be on the device. You can't be measuring how fast somebody learns a word. Lucas, do you have the word run in your device?
Run.
Okay. I think run is the most frequent. I think run, or we'll get to it later. I think run has 385 different meanings based on context or word comes before it and after it. So we'll get a slide that shows that later. But the way you use it's even better. Do you remember how you say Vicksburg when we used to go to the casino? Do you remember how you said Vicksburg?
Fix. Bird. Vicksburg.
That sounded like Vicksburg to almost everybody in this, all 131 people. If you heard Vicksburg when he said that, give me a thumbs up. It was close enough. If you said, I want to go to the casino then when it came to Vicksburg, you said fix bird. Fix bird is how you got away with saying Vicksburg. It was genius. Lucas, who taught you to do that? Did you teach yourself, or did people model fix bird together?
Mama.
Your mama was very good at teaching you words, and words. and she taught you how to combine words together to make novel utterances. That's genius. Perfect. All right. Got to offer fringe and core words simultaneously. Must cast back and model intermittent encoding methods, and no change in motor plans as you develop. You have to have a vision for how the motor plans can grow but not change. And Lucas, you did all that for us. There's 2 tricks to language, Lucas, that you have already demonstrated tonight very well. And we'll get to whether people can see what your actual overlay looks like in a minute. But the first principle is the arbitrariness of the sign. The whole conventional pairing of a sound with meaning. The word dog does not look like a dog, walk like a dog, or woof like a dog. But for the price of this standardization, memorization, members of a language community receive enormous benefit. That's out of The Language Instinct by Steven Pinker. This is another quote from him. The second trick behind language is to capture the phrase from the von Humboldt. Language makes use of a finite media. So you don't have to have every word in the English language to be able to talk. And so what I want to encourage people to do is not say to a child who has a device, how do you say the words I am sick? Don't try to do it this way instead. Say, can you use the words you know to tell me you don't feel good? Can you say you feel sick? So there's more than one way to say something. Go ahead, Lucas, if you want to talk. I can tell when you're ready. Were you just going to show them how to say it? You don't have to do that. You thought go ahead and do it. Show them how you say I feel sick.
I am sick. I am sick.
Yes, that's the same way as I feel sick, I am sick. They all work the same way. And Lucas, you're the master of doing that. So I love your demonstration. This might sound a little preachy, but the words that occur often in speech, core words, don't produce pictures. They're not picture producers. So if you see a screen and it has words like are and is and to and the words that occur in speech, of course you don't like the symbols, but this isn't Pictionary we're playing. You're teaching language. And so for that language explosion, you have to give individuals the words that occur often in speech. And then I'm giving them a reference from Bob McMurray on diffusing the vocabulary explosion and the 2 conclusions he came up for teaching. He came up with 2 conclusions for an individual to have a language explosion. He said, first, words are acquired in parallel. That is, the system builds representations for multiple words simultaneously. We had to throw lots of words at you. That's why you didn't make it work on the first systems. They had too few words and they were phrase-based. So even though you had 8 years of those, it didn't work. And then the second conclusion he came up with, he says, when it comes to the difficulty of learning words, they should be distributed such that there are few words that can be acquired quickly and a greater number that take longer. And so sure, it might have taken you longer to learn some of the words than the word snowman or the word CB, but you needed to learn those words so you could communicate like you're demonstrating tonight. So back to what we said you did earlier, you learned to just touch buttons and find the words. And then after you touched them a few times, you find the next one. So I was going to have the audience learn what it's like to learn from just touching. So just take your finger and touch, I want sleep. Now do it again. I want sleep. That's with vocabulary builder on. Now with a highlighted, which Lucas never had. Now do I want sleep again. I want sleep one more time. Promise me you're doing this in the air with me. One more time, the whole 130 people. I want sleep. One more time with no masking. I want sleep. All right. Now where's sleep? Sleep is here, want is here, and I is here. And I want sleep is here. That's learning it through the motor plan. And that's how Lucas learned his device. He just touched the buttons and memorized where they were over time. And over time, he got more and more words. And pretty soon he was speaking using that small, finite number of words. It's important to understand, again, that mirror neurons lead to segmentation and that speech and gestures share a common neural structure. When you do this, you say the word more. When you say the word more, you practice the gesture. When you do this, you say the word okay. When you say okay, you're actually doing this. That's right, Lucas. And when I say the word more, you're practicing where more is on your device with no cognitive awareness. That's the benefit of mirror neurons, because mirror neurons are multisensory convergent. They're multisensory. So Lucas, when I say I like mom, even though you're just listening to me say, I like mom, can you feel your hand saying, I like mom on your device? Or is it just, how do you say, I like mom on your device? Well, you don't feel mirror neurons. So go ahead and show me.
I like mama. I like mama.
Perfect. All right. Lucas taught us that more buttons means easier and motor plans don't change, fewer keystrokes. Nobody wants to go back to the phone that does JKL. Lucas, if I text you, this is some of these questions I'm asking that I haven't asked you before. When I text you a long text and you have to decipher it, how do you know what I wrote? If I write,
I do not read long. Mama has to read it to me. I do not read long. Mama has to read it to me.
but little ones, you get pretty good, don't you? Because a lot of times you text me these little ones back and forth. All right. More vocabulary means more fun, allows for mishits. So Lucas has no word that's greater than 3 keystrokes, and he has no word duplicated in his device. He's a pure, that's why we sort of stole some of the things. We didn't use the activity row in Design Words for Life. We didn't duplicate words because we knew that if you know where orange is, you can use orange as a color or you can use orange as a fruit that you eat. You didn't care. It was fine to use one, to have it in there one way. All right. Now, motor plans that change, the less buttons you have, the more confusing the device is. The hardest device ever invented is the single button because when you touch it, you can get eat this way, but then you get it this way, this way, this way. You can hit it with your head. So it'd be like teaching many motor movements say more. This is more, and so is this, and so is this. And so with Lucas's device, we learned that more buttons means easier up to the spot where you have to have trouble touching the locations. Now, one of the things that's unique to LAMP Words for Life vocabulary is we actually space words apart that are likely to be taught together. So it's why my and turn or on and off aren't next to each other, or mom's here and dad's over here. A lot of times people say that you have a motor planning approach, but they didn't actually make motor plans more unique, which again, Lucas taught us the benefit of doing that. Now, Lucas and I were talking about last night or Monday night about the associations and that he didn't learn them, he just learned the sequence. So I wanted to show you what some of the symbols that he uses to say pizza. So when Lucas wants to say pizza, go ahead and tell us pizza on your device, Lucas. He hits an apple, which is in the middle area about right here. He then goes to an ambulance right here because this looks like pasta going up.
Pizza.
See how this symbol right here, this medical symbol, it looks like noodles going up. So that's where it got Italian. Then any time's a good time for pizza. And what I'm telling you is that yeah, now you see why you learned it, but you just learned it. That's new to you, isn't it? And when we taught you how to say taco, it was food plus the desert plus the sun, because this sun is half of a sun looks like a taco. Got it now? Yeah. I think it takes a lot of language to understand that, but I think you learn the motor plans first. Then once you have a lot of language and you can talk, then you come back and learn those. Now, I do think these are extremely beneficial for the person who has that language skill and understands it, and they make learning much more efficient and make it much more fun. But I wanted to make sure people don't think of that as a prerequisite. It's your ability to learn given a new system, not what you learned in the past that matters. So things that scramble the motor plan. Maybe we should go to questions before we run out of time, Lucas. I told myself I didn't care if we went over the hour because you were too important for me to worry about. Oh, we got a little bit of time. Stephanie, is there a question that really needs to be answered?
There are some questions. One is a question for both of you. Advice on how I can help our local school understand how important training is for an aide.
Oh, beautiful question. Maybe they'd watch this video, but I'm going to tell you in 35 years of working in the AC field, almost every time I find a success story, it's either a parent who is really involved or second most important, be an aide in the school. Now, I just did a training for, it was in Ohio, Olentangy, and they included lots of techs and lots of aides. And I also was in Hawaii recently with Joseph Ahuna, and they train a lot of aides and techs and see the importance of that. A lot of other school districts I can start naming that have done that. New York City schools was very good about that. So was Kenosha. I guess I should stop naming all these schools, but there are pockets of schools. Actually, I could go on and on naming schools that have realized that. And one of the things they've done is have us come in during their PD days. I forget what that professional development days, and let us just show the importance of the speech path, the teacher, the aide, the parents, all getting that same training. And it's so much fun if once they get inspired and they see how to do it. But I think it takes Lucas's story. Maybe if they would watch this video, that would help too.
Yeah. One second question, last question right now. And this question is for you, Lucas. It's from Stephanie Fortune Taylor. She wants to know, do you have any ideas on how I can help develop independence in typing? The kid wants to hold their hand while they're typing, hold somebody's hand.
That's a tough one, isn't it, Lucas? Do you think?
Come back with that.
He wants us to
Come
explain it
back
again.
with that.
She has a kid who's learning to spell, but he only wants to do it if he holds her hand. So it looks like he's not doing independent. So do you have any suggestions for what she could do to help him not want someone to hold their hand? That's a tough one, Lucas. I don't even know what to say. Besides, did anyone ever hold your hand too much? Did you ever have somebody grabbing your finger? Nobody ever did that? Well, it does happen. Do you ever remember anybody pushing your fingers in the holes, or did you just kind of try to do it yourself mostly? They didn't do it. Nobody did that. Yeah. It's tough because sometimes I think some kids see it as a way of saying I'm communicating with you. Some kids need that hand to help them initiate the motor movement, and sometimes they got over prompted early on and they think it's important to do that. So I don't blame you, Lucas, for saying come back with that, because that's a hard question. Maybe if we got to know the kid better and know the therapist, we could help better without just jumping in there. So I apologize. We don't have fade the prompt as much as you can, model another kid, create racing games and fun activities where you don't have the hand, and maybe even try even a rubber hand or something, or an object they can hold to try to get you might also try putting a Band-Aid on Mr. Pointer, or maybe a glove with Mr. Finger coming out, and maybe consult with an OT and see if maybe we can figure out why they're doing that. Is they think they need you to do it, or are they actually thinking, hey, when you're holding my hand, I'm talking to you, we're being social here together? That would change my opinion on it. But I do know you want them to be as independent as possible, and you don't want someone to believe that it's a facilitated communication where somebody else is doing the talking for them. I hope we answered that good enough.
I think you're on a good roll here.
Okay.
I do have another question.
All right.
Interesting. Kathy Castor asked, did you say that Lucas started with the same number of cells icons at the start as he has now, or did he build that some over time? I'm working on giving kids more icons than less, but some kiddos definitely seem to they get a little overwhelmed when there are too many icons, not using Unity MinSpeak, or they cannot target smaller icons.
Yeah, Lucas started the same board he's on now when he was in third grade or whatever it was, when he was 8 years old, or no, not 8, probably 12-ish. Your mom might have to verify that for me. I wouldn't give the exact age, but I was there when you got your Delta talker and we put Unity on it. And I was there also when your popsicle stick on the one before it had IEP Plus on it. So let me just do some math in my head. 12 or about 12 years old, 13 years old is my guess. You got your Delta talker, and that's when you took off. Now, don't be confused about something. The younger you are, the more plastic your brain is, the easier you are to teach. So a 13-year-old is still a very plastic brain, but Lucas had gifted skills early on, just that evaluators couldn't see it, but they should have, and they should have known that more buttons means easier, not harder. So it's a trick. Now we have new tools called Vocabulary Builder that hides vocabulary words that we didn't have. And we have things like Word Finder and Vocabulary Builder and highlighting words. Lucas had none of that. I want to show him Lucas's device. This is what it usually looks like because it's paper. And after he touches it, yeah, that's and he's got 2 or 3 of them there next to him. And every time let me put out a call out to all the therapists in the room. If you have an old Pathfinder, a blue Pathfinder especially, Lucas and I would still like to keep him on this Pathfinder as long as we can. We'll take a blue Pathfinder on donation. Even the battery pack would be valuable to us. But anyway, or the overlays would be important. But you see what happens to Lucas after he touches the overlay hundreds of times and his fingers touch it, he wears them out and he can no longer see the symbols. So if you see, this is what he's seeing when he's talking on that device right now. You see how he's wore these buttons all the way up, you can't see the picture anymore. But it doesn't matter to you one bit, does it? You know this, you're automatic with the motor movement. You don't have to think about it. He's only spelled one word tonight the whole time we've been doing this presentation. So all right, Lucas. Here's what I think the big mistakes are in the field of AAC, and they're repeated all the time. We start kids on too few symbols. You just have to, trust me, put them on more buttons than anyone likes, and more buttons than you think they can hit, but use a key guard. Not understanding that words occur in speech are not picture producers. What I'm saying is the words that occur often in speech don't produce pictures, so you got to have them, the symbols got to look hard. They duplicate words, or they think that they're saying they have unique motor plans when they end in the same location. That's not the same motor plan. Big mistake. They hear words to get words. When Lucas said, I like mama, he didn't do I like as a pronoun phrase. He did I by itself, like by its phrase, and mama by itself. They don't understand that you can't backwards chain. You can't teach the back half of a sequence first. The first half changes the back half, so you have to teach a forwards chain. Another big one is thinking that children have to have prerequisites, or that there's a vocabulary that's important for a child different than an adult. All a child's vocabulary is a subset of the one they're growing into. We can't think of it as 2 different vocabularies, and when they get to a certain stage 3 on this program, they're now ready for something different. We're squandering those primary language learning years. If Lucas had started on Unity 128 at 3 or 4, he'd potentially be better than he is now, which is hard to believe, but he could have been. And the next one we're kind of going down to is believing that literacy or the ability to spell is the only way to be generative. I know too many kids who can spell that aren't generative because it's too slow, too many keystrokes. They participate, but they're not generative like Lucas is. And so I want you to understand that we all want literacy, and Lucas has been developing literacy, but it's not, you can't, only according to statistics, about 10% or a little less or more than 10% of individuals with complex communication needs develop literacy skills that allow them to use it as an encoding method. 10%. That means 90% of your kids who are using communication devices do not develop literacy skills that allow them to encode as an encoding method. For that 90%, I hope you don't keep thinking of them as people who can't generate novel, spontaneous utterances. No more than poor spellers, it's required that a person can spell to communicate, than it is that you can spell to talk like Lucas does. And then the last one is that vocabulary does not encode in the same language the community the individual talks in. It's really important that Lucas's device encodes in the same community, same way you and I are talking right now. All right, now this is, do you mind me talking about this, Lucas? Lucas comes from an incredible story. His grandfather, who I met, was the quarterback in Ole Miss in 1950, 52. And he holds records for the state records for track, Big Ten, all these records. They went undefeated in 1952. Anyway, I remember your grandfather. So he's the greatest, one of the greatest. He's in the Hall of Fame of football players. So here's your grandfather, the greatest football player, baseball player, track player, basketball player, and then he had. Are you his only grandson? I know you have a sister. Do you have any other Does he have any other grandchildren?
They had 5. They had 5.
All right, great. Well, when I went to your home with your grandparents' home one time for dinner, when I sat there, you sat right next to him. You had wore out the floor. And I remember I was meeting a true Southern chivalry. He carried himself with just such honor and distinguished. And then your grandmother got on me, and your grandmother said, John, and did you notice how much you look like your grandfather? Look at that picture there, his face. Has anyone ever showed you this before? Look at your grandfather's face, his facial features, and look at your features. They're identical to me. I think you have the same. I think you have the same drive and stamina for life as he did, and you've championed just like he was a champion in sports. You're a champion of an AAC device, and he taught people and became owned the cotton business and stuff. And you just as big of an accomplishment as you having your own cleaning business and employing people and going out and cleaning buildings and doing things. So I think you got that from your grandfather, Lear. But anyway, when I was there at that dinner table, your grandmother got on me about the fact that you hadn't developed literacy skills. And I want to say it again, we promote, there's nothing we want more than literacy. Nothing. Look, I'm putting it on there. I just have to accept the fact that when it comes to spelling and word prediction, abbreviated expansion, that a lot of these things don't happen for individuals. And when we read that it is, I've been already down this path, but when we read that it is critical, I want to change that fallacy. I read it all the time. Here's an example of a study that said about 90% of the students in the complex community leave school without the necessary literacy skills to enter meaningful work or life activities. Again, we love literacy, but it cannot be seen as the ultimate encoding method or the best or the one you strive for the most. It's just be one of the tools you use. Here's another one doing the same thing where they talk about how literacy is critical for communication. Now here's that prevalence again, around 10% of individuals with complex communication needs develop literacy skills. The rest can't use it as a code. 90% on the first line there. 90% of students with complex communication leave high school without acquiring. So Lucas, you were one of those 90%, but you still could talk very effectively and very communicatively. Now, this is one of my favorite quotes. It says, the greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. I happened to be working with you at the time when your parents had great resources. Your mom's a teacher, and you flew all over the world for getting therapy strategies and techniques and met with people. You met with some of the highest credentialed speech therapists in the country. And some of them would put in writing why they thought you should not use a MinSpeak-based system. And this is one of the words they wrote. They wrote at the university, and I blocked it out. Lucas is having trouble memorizing those MinSpeak sequences. It is strongly recommended. It's a strong recommendation of this evaluator that MinSpeak not be pursued with Lucas. The memory load the memory load associated with using this large number of symbol sequences that MinSpeak involves is beyond the capacity of most people. And it is reported to the extent that individuals do make use of symbols, they only do so for a small number of words, phrases, or sentences which occur frequently. And then your mom wrote on the side, ha, because she knew that you had already were doing well in achieving it. So what they wanted you to do was they wanted you to make boards for activities and work with your teachers, and you'd have these 15 location boards for cooking and going to the gym, and you had already been on a phrase-based, communication-based system when you were back in 3 and 4 years old. And again, they should have known you'd been down that path and tried it. Then they wrote, the sooner Lucas develops spelling, the sooner he'll be competitive, pursuing a social and educational interaction without depending on someone else, intuitive his topics and install his overlays. Guess what, Lucas? You achieved all those things you were after by using a small number of words to make it an infinite amount of possibilities. So that was maybe a little bit. All right. I think I've covered that everything in here, Lucas. We'll take a few more questions, but I was going to end. Tell him, what do you tell him a little about this guy I have on the screen right now?
Oh.
That is
Oh.
my favorite gospel sing. Singer. Lee Williams and the QC apostrophe QCS. That is my favorite gospel singer, Lee Williams and the QCs.
Yep, and I was going to have them tell the story. I'm not, because it's already past time. I'm going to tell it quickly as I can. You would follow that group and go to the concerts, go to the music events, and they got to know you, and they'd put you up on the stage. And then one time you actually got on the bus, and Lee was trying to sleep, and you jumped in on. They let you in the bus. Anyway, he's got a song that says "I Can't Give Up," and when that song plays and you start singing with it, it doesn't get any prettier. So I thought I might end with you singing. But let's see if there's any people have held on quite a while. I know a lot of them had to leave. Any questions, Stephanie, we ought to answer before I let Lucas close out?
There's no questions, but people are very adamant. We need to do our poll immediately
Oh,
in the chat window. In the chat window.
In the chat window.
Please make your vote. Should
200.
Lucas earn 200 or 300?
200.
Don't
200.
listen to John.
200.
I'm raising you 100.
200.
John, you're out. Oh, we got 500 there. Why not
No,
go for
no.
350?
No, 200 or 300. I say 200.
John, you're outvoted. Lucas, I guess that means
Lucas.
that, but they roped me into kicking in the extra 100, so
Oh,
I guess
there
we're
you
both
go.
out of it.
All right. Lucas, you well earned your $300. Stephanie, thank you for making these things happen and pushing me into this. So Lucas, my friend, thank you very much for everything you did tonight and helping us learn across the last 30 years. All right, I'm going to end it, Stephanie, with Lucas singing "I Can't Give Up." You got to see him singing with it. As a way to pin him, I'll stop the share. I might not be able to make it
There's
work.
one simple water hack anyone can do to fix erratic blood sugar almost overnight. Thousands of people are apparently
Oh no, I think you do have to share it, John, so we can hear it.
Oh. You can't hear yet? I'll get it working.
See, I've come to turn around now. Somebody still understand me, but you see, I've come
Thanks, Lucas.